Alright, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about servers before I get into it. So, server is a generic term used by us in the enterprise industry or even small business or even home. Basically, server means a device a computing device that is in position to deliver content or a service. So that could be anything from delivering a web service, web pages, database, front end database, a forum, a wiki, any of that sort of stuff, right up to like YouTube files and instant messenger chatting. Anything that delivers a service on that end. Then it can also be used to deliver files. So a repository of space for users or departments to keep their documentation, scanned images, picture files, video files, whatever. There's 100 different things that could be kept on a file server. Servers also deliver services such as printing and scanning. So you can have things like a Laserfiche, which is a scanning repository. It's a service that allows you to scan documents onto a server, which then can be handled in a multitude of ways again. There is also PDF scanning services, there's OCR scanning services, there's several scanning services, and printers. Printers in an industrial environment or even a semi enterprise environment, like a small business or something, you're not going to want a server at everybody's desk. In some cases, they do that, but generally speaking, you're going to have one or two in offices where people need to confidentially print things, or management where it's like a perk thing and they can have it just right in their desk. But generally speaking, you're going to have a centralized computer in each work group or department, or building or floor, or however the company has designed their printing infrastructure. Places I've worked before, you had one for like HR and administration, you had one for like geology and sciences and tech, another one in the maintenance building, another one in the mill complex, another one at the site services or maintenance complex, another one down at camp or a couple down at camp. It really depends on what you need. So there's a lot of different options of it out there, but again, printing from a server as a service. So now you've got to make a choice. Okay, well, do I go with a hosted service? Do I go with a local service running off iron? And that again is going to depend nowadays on your environment. Back in the day, everything was raw installed on the iron. Then we moved forward and we started using virtual machines, but those were again on the iron. Then we moved into hybrid environments where you run your virtual machines on the iron, but also in the cloud, some tendency in the cloud. Nowadays, a lot of businesses are completely in the cloud. Everything is done off the cloud, be it their own cloud, hosted in their own data center, or be it hosted service, AWS, Google, Microsoft Azure, or many independents that are using like the OpenStack platform. So there's a lot of different options there as well, and you choose the best for your environment. I'm going to be doing all on iron and or virtual. So because I'm building a small little micro data center here as a lab project to demonstrate all the steps that are needed to build an enterprise environment that could be scaled. Next is file servers. And do you go Microsoft? Do you go Linux? There's a lot of options, well, not a lot of options, a lot of flavors of Linux out there. There's essentially two types. You've got the Red Hat, or you've got the Debian based, which is like the most famous is Ubuntu. So you've got two camps on that side, and in an enterprise environment, generally people are going with Red Hat, CentOS, Fedora. It works a little bit different and is more tailored to the business environment. In a home, small office, home office environment, Ubuntu is the king. It's generally the king of that environment and also the king of the desktops. So there's options there. Both options have more or less the same solutions, just rolled out in a different way. Then you go over to the mainstay of the enterprise business world for an office space environment. Microsoft has been the king for decades and probably will be the king still for another decade. But they are losing a lot of that share as Linux is getting better and better, and you don't have those licensing costs that are associated with Microsoft licensing or Microsoft volume licensing, which is not a cheap thing, let me tell you. You're getting more and more businesses as the technology is developing utilizing Linux, especially in some of the smaller businesses and the medium businesses where they don't necessarily have huge amounts of capex funding to designate towards infrastructure and licensing fees. Much like when I was talking about my networking, how a lot of people are discovering that they can move away from the Cisco devices and are choosing to do so mainly because of that volume licensing, so or service licensing, annual licensing, whatever you want to call it. So you've got those choices to make, and Active Directory is primarily the authentication system that is used everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're running PC, Linux, whatever, Microsoft Server, Red Hat, whatever, you're using some form of Active Directory. Now, there is Open Directory, which is the Linux equivalent to it, which also uses a Samba service. There's a couple different ones out there, but Open Samba is the one that I have experience with, and it basically is group policies. And what group policies are is it's a technology that Microsoft developed. I think it came over from the NetBEUI days, but I don't really remember. It's been a lot of years since I did the book reading on all of that. But it's a technology where it integrates into Active Directory, which is a hierarchy-based system. So your Active Directory is your users, computers, your groups, so like say human resources, maintenance, security, management, whatever. You've got these groups. Then when a person is created or a user account is created, John Smith at whatever, that person is then assigned group permissions or a group profile to use. And that will dictate what folders he has access to on the file server, what permissions he has to in databases, what permissions in software that isn't in databases, but that can be trickier. But it's connected in with something called an LDAP handler, which I'll probably go into when I set it up in a video. But you don't need much details on that now. And the group policies. The group policies a lot of times handle things as trivial as which printer this person gets, which folder access he has. Although the permissions are granted in AD, the mapping and stuff and physically putting shortcuts in the desktop or in the computer profile for the end user by using the group policy. You can drill down to I want Chrome, not Internet Explorer. So Internet Explorer shortcuts are removed and Chrome is installed and the shortcuts are added. You can install Office applications. So say you have a projects group and you have Microsoft project licensing, which is not cheap. So you want your 10 people in your projects group to get the project licensing, but you don't need HR having it. You don't need health and safety having it. You don't need security. You don't need maintenance. So what you do is in the group for project management or projects, you have a group policy set that then deploys and activates the licensing for Microsoft Project on those people's computers or when those people log into a computer and everything syncs up. So that's kind of an overview of how that works. I just wanted to give you a basic rundown on what the servers were and squeeze this video in before I actually do my video on building a web server and a cloud server, which I believe will be my next video. So I hope you stay tuned for that one and understand a little bit better about what servers are, what their concepts behind them are, and some of the different types of servers that can be utilized in an environment. Thank you very much.